Hello.
Hey, hello. Wait, we're on different sides. Even our names
Uh-oh.
are.
Oh, it does. Well, I feel like I'm more left than you. So here we go.
Oh, wow. Them's fighting words, buddy.
Let's do it.
Hi. Welcome to Punch Up Pod with Leila and Pat. We're so happy to be here with all of you. We are also so excited to have a guest on tonight. Daniel Wilson, who is a working class transgender veteran running a nonpartisan grassroots congressional campaign for California's 26th district. Whoops, we're missing everything. Yes, that is it. Pat, what's happening, Pat?
Oh, I just put up the graphic.
The control booth left us. We need Daniel. Can I?
Yeah, of course. I thought we were introducing him. Anyway,
I did. Oh, sorry. We're a mess this week.
Daniel is on his way. Here he comes. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, hi.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Welcome. We're so excited to have you here. So as you can tell, we were talking about nerves and stuff before. Pat and I do a good job at putting everyone at ease because we frequently flub up midstream. So there's no
professionalism should make you feel completely at home because you would be more professional than us. You are the responsible adult in the room.
We keep joking that we have to play our PAs. Right. Yeah. So hi, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. How are you both doing tonight?
I'm good. I think you are, not to give too much personal information, but I think you're my kind of neighbor. I'm in Sherman Oaks. I think you're just a little north of me, right? You're running for California's 26th district. Is that correct? Oh, we're having a little bit of a lag.
Uh-oh.
Everybody's lagged. I'm moving. Pat, you're still, but I can hear you. And Daniel is.
I think he's back. Oh. Daniel, we lost you for a second there.
Yeah, I'm back now. Sorry about that.
Okay. Awesome.
So I was just. Can you hear me? Yeah. I was
just asking.
Yes. Okay. Good. I was saying that I think you're just my neighbor to the north, up in California's 26th district. Is that correct? You're like Westlake and Thousand Oaks.
Yep, all the way up through Ventura. So we stopped just shy of Santa Barbara.
Okay. Well, so we'd love to hear some of your background and why you're running and whatever else you care to tell us, just to kind of give people some background on who you are and what makes you tick and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you both for having me on today. I really appreciate that and this opportunity. So thank you for that. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Wilson. I'm a 37-year-old working class transgender veteran, as Leila was so nice to introduce me as. I've worked in the service industry since I was 14 years old. And so I know the feeling of struggling to make ends meet, being written off as less than, and the unyielding desire to fight for a better future. And so I'm running for Congress to challenge the status quo set up by our current establishment and to show that the working poor can climb higher than we've been led to believe, and that we deserve to be represented by someone that is going to fight for all of us.
Wonderful. Can you tell us who you're running against? Or yeah.
Sure. So I'm running against, her name is Julia Brownlee. She is best described as a corporate Democrat, do nothing Dem, 5-term incumbent. The really interesting part about her and the dynamic for our district is, and I don't know if you experienced this in your district in LA, it's Leila, right?
Yes, Leila, you did.
Just want to make sure I'm saying it right. Everybody thinks that California is just straight blue, right? We're Democrat no matter what, and that's it. There's no questions. But Devin Nunes is a California congressman, right? So that's not always the case. And so my county, my district is no different. We would be best described as purple, even though we're frequently listed as a D+20 district. So the only reason we actually have a Democratic congresswoman right now is because of the census and the redistricting that was done a decade ago. So we're going through that again right now. But in the last redistricting process, they cut out the most conservative section of Simi Valley. And that's how we were able to get a Democratic congresswoman for the first time. Not for the first time, but So even with having a Democratic Congresswoman and it being, a D+20 district, our clerk recorder, our CEO, and the majority on our board of supervisors are all Republicans. So it really is more of a purple district, but the Dems do hold the majority. So what's interesting about Brownlee is that, so there's 2 military bases in my county and in my district. And so as well as the VA within the 2 VAs in LA, and we've got a VA, set up here as well in Oxnard now. And so I guess what really started to upset me is that she leans on veterans. And so she styles herself as the veterans congressperson. So every other day she's putting out some type of tweet or, performative piece of legislation to name a building after a female veteran. And while that is absolutely great, and we should absolutely be, elevating female veterans and doing that, to tout that as a piece of legislation and something that you're doing for your constituents is kind of ridiculous. That should just be a no-brainer, right? We shouldn't have to have a piece of legislation to do that. So there's a variety of issues with that. But so she styles herself as a veterans candidate. There's veterans all over her website, all over her everything. Everything she talks about is veterans, veterans, veterans. And so last year, the pandemic, I'm sure for everybody, but especially for me, kind of blew everything wide open. It exposed the depth of the rot in both our political, our economic, our environmental, just everything, even the things that we thought were decent or okay, it just, there's no questions anymore, right? We know it's all terrible. And so as we here in Ventura County, as I watched our unhoused brothers and sisters, the number of them getting kicked out of their homes increase, the food lines explode, small businesses close, with no meaningful response from anybody from the city council all the way up to the presidency. Nobody did what they should have done last year. Absolutely not. So I feel like they all abdicated their responsibility to protect and provide for the residents of this country. And so last year I was working with the People's Party. Things have changed since, but I knew that the problem was the duopoly, right? And so kind of a long winding story to my answer, but I wanted to work with DSA, but I connected with some people there and found out that they had no intention of, at the time anyway, creating an actual party. And so I redirected my attention to the People's Party. And so I protested with them last summer when they did the People's Stimulus Rally. And so I actually protested in front of Julia Brownlee's house, demanding that she pass a People's Stimulus, right? We wanted them to cover payroll, cancel rents and mortgages, pass Medicare for all, all of the no-brainers in pandemic. Right. And just the silence was deafening. Like just absolute silence was deafening. And so we continued calling, writing, doing all these things. Fast forward a couple months, I am working with DSA and National Nurses United and CNA on a pressure campaign, not only for cow care, right there, boop, boop, cow care, and then also for Medicare for all. And so we were planning a legislative visit with Julia Brownlee. And by this time I had already filed, but I hadn't announced, and a few people knew that I was running. And those people decided that I couldn't ask my question because I would be too brazen and probably put her on the spot. And so they took and asked my question for me, but I was happy they still asked it. It's fine. And so my question to her was, she's constantly touting that there are at least 8,000 veterans in Ventura County that she has helped get access to their VA benefits, which is phenomenal because our path to getting our VA benefit approval is just a nightmare. So that's great. That is really a great thing. And so I said that in a wonderful way. I said, you've done some wonderful things for veterans and we really appreciate that. I said, however, there are millions of veterans nationwide who do not have disability VA access. And even if they do, their families do not have access. And I said, so you could help and save millions of veterans and their family members by passing Medicare for all. And she looked dead ass into the camera and said, that's the opinion of one veteran.
Wow. Yeah. Was there?
Yeah, I mean,
sorry. There's a whole that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a lot to respond to, but I mean, that makes it clear why you're running. And that, I mean, to me, Medicare for all is the top issue. And as a veteran, I imagine getting veteran care is more, equally important. And the performative action of what was it? Was it a library? What was the building she named after
just creating legislation to say that we need to name buildings after. So it wasn't even an actual ceremonious naming.
Wow.
It was, just like, my problem with the Green New Deal is that it's just a piece of legislation saying, hey, we should recognize that we need to do something. Right. It's not an actual Green New Deal, right? And so I feel like it's the same thing. It's a we should do this.
Right.
Yeah, it's akin to forming a committee to do something. Almost
exactly.
Let's I support everything you stand for, but I'm not going to put any legislation up for anything.
I'm not going to do anything to make it happen.
Yeah. And we see that so often. I mean, go ahead, Leila.
Well, that seems to be the platform of the Democratic Party. I see behind you that you have, yes, I see Daniel Wilson for Congress, and then yes, on your other side, that's what I want the lawn sign of, not that like bougie one. That's my and yet I know that even though many of those words are in the Democratic platform, that is not, they put no work in actually to get those policies passed. However, I'm curious because you're a nonpartisan candidate, which I just wanted to hear your thoughts behind resolutely deciding not to run as a Democrat.
Absolutely. So there's a lot that went into that. So first and foremost, for most of my life, I was a non-voter. I was with the silent majority of our country that believed and knew that our vote didn't matter. So the first election that I was cognizant of was the 2000 election, what I consider the first stolen election in my lifetime, the hanging chads in Florida. So I did vote in 2004, and so full disclosure, raised by conservative Republicans that voted for Bush and voted for Trump. First time, not the second time. I'll take credit for that. So the first time I voted was in 2004, and it was just me and my girlfriend at the time. Went and voted to just cancel out my parents' votes because we were like, if the two of us vote Democrat and the two of them vote Republican, it should be a wash, right? And then, to be honest, I never voted again. I did not vote in the Obama elections. Even as an active service member, I did not vote. And part of that actually is the messed up absentee ballot process of Maryland. So I'm from the East Coast. Okay. And so I was still registered to vote in Maryland when I was serving, and they don't have what we have here, where it's no excuse absentee balloting. You can just request one. You have to have a reason, and it goes into a basement unless there's a tie. Like, it's one of those type of situations. Right. And the laws have probably changed since. I'm not fresh on the Maryland laws, but yeah. So I just didn't vote for a long time, and it was not until this young gentleman right here by the name of Bernard Sanders jumped into all our lives in 2016 that really I got shaken awake, and the political fire that was ignited under me has just become insatiable, and it's just been a steady climb since then. So I started volunteering at the polls, and then I worked at the county I worked at actually the Ventura County Elections Office for the last 2 years. So I put on 3 elections last year during the pandemic. And through all of that, through working on several different sides now of the electoral process, be it helping people vote at the polling places, getting them the equipment they need to vote, or now running for office, you get to interact with a lot of people, and they're very honest, and they say a lot of things that you wouldn't expect that they would say. And I found in all of my communications with everybody that whenever you started to talk about politics, everybody gets tribal, right? And they would, sit down in their hunches and, oh, well, you're a dirty Democrat, or you're just a stupid Republican. And I would say, well, no, I'm neither. And this was before I had decided to run for anything, let alone be nonpartisan. But the minute that Bernie Sanders dropped out in 2020, I changed my registration from Democrat to other. Yeah. So the only reason I was in the Democratic Party was because we have a screwed up system where it's a closed primary, and you have to register a certain way to be able to participate in your democracy. So I always considered myself independent-ish, even before deciding to run nonpartisan. And so as soon as I would say that, you guys, as soon as I would say, well, no, I'm neither, I'm independent, you could see people physically relax. Their shoulders would come down and they would go, tell me about that. Especially now that I'm saying nonpartisan instead of independent, their curiosity is even more piqued. And then the walls come down and we get to have a conversation. Right. So that was really some of the first direct action with my community, with my public, seeing how they were reacting to the hyperpartisanship.
Yeah.
And the further I got involved in wanting to run and everything. And, I have one volunteer, one supporter who probably every day tells me that I need to run as a Democrat or I have no chance. So it's not that I don't have that buzz in my ear all the time. But I just push back, and for several reasons, and I'd be happy to break all of that down. But I knew that running nonpartisan, I knew that the parties were the problem, right? The hanging chads in 2020 or in 2000, destroying Bernie Sanders in 2016, and absolutely no change in the Democratic Party platform, process, how they're going to do anything. Instead, we actually see a full repeat of that in 2020. And then, the disappointments with the squad. And full disclosure, I'm 100% forced to vote, but I am not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that there are things that need to be done and changed and improved. But there's legitimate concern and discontent there, right? And then the what I feel like is the most final and recent blow was Nina Turner's loss, right? And so just blow after blow after blow, and not just the Democratic, us leftists losing, running as Democrats, but the DNC coalescing with our enemies. This is supposed to be the rivals,
right.
With Nina Turner's election, we have GOP money, we have Israeli PAC money, and the DNC coalescing behind the corporate candidate that they know they can control. And so kind of all of that, I just knew that there was no way I wanted to be a part of such a terrible system. And we have the benefit here in California where we have a jungle primary. And so I'm actually, one of my main things through, whether it is nonpartisan, supporting Medicare for all, cancel the rents, anything that we're doing, we're seeing that education and information and lack thereof are the problems. And so a lot of people don't know not only that a nonpartisan person can run, but I've had Democrats say, oh, well, I can't vote for you. And I'm like, no, that's just the presidency. And we all know that there's not enough of an understanding of our governmental and electoral processes explained. And we can have a discussion about how that's intentional.
Just to explain to people real quick who don't know, in California, top two people on the primaries face off on the ballot. So you could have two Democrats facing off. You could have a Democrat and independent, Democrat, Republican, two Republicans. So you're really not a spoiler if you jump in there and go heads up against Pelosi, because it's such a Democratic state. I mean, you wouldn't be facing Pelosi, obviously.
Right.
It's such a Democratic state that it's very common for two Democrats to end up facing each other, or a Democrat and independent. So, I often feel like, you're in a tough spot if you choose to run as a Democrat, because I immediately distrust you, or I don't give you the same trust I would as an independent candidate. On the other hand, running as a Democrat, running as an independent, you've got to promote your own PR and you don't, but so what would happen if you ran as a Democrat? How do you see that playing out if you chose to run as a Democrat? What forces would be against you? And
yeah, sure. And, I definitely had to sit down and really think about this. And so before I made my decision, when I made my decision, and probably every day since, I still consider it and contemplate it. Am I making the right decision? Am I shooting myself in the foot? And probably at least every day, if not every week, I get some kind of reaffirmation that I am absolutely on the right path. And so, yes, it's absolutely going to be the uppest hill battle I have ever fought in my life. And I have served in the military, and I am transgender. So I've gone through a lot of things, and this is definitely going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. But so I had to sit down and really think. And so, so the incumbent is an establishment Democrat. If you look at her record, she votes party line every time. So while she is not AOC, while she is not one of the most popular people, even people in our own district don't know who she is. They don't know who our representative is. And I say, well, there's a reason for that. It's because she doesn't do anything. But the Democratic Party likes her, right? She pays her dues. She does what they tell her to. She doesn't make waves. She put out after all the recent upset and outcry with the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. She tweeted about Israel, and she voted against decreasing the military budget by 10%. And so she is with them 100%. And so as soon as I knew that she was running again, I knew that there was nothing I could do that would make them endorse me.
Right.
And in that process, I would be giving up my soul. And I have no desire to make a Horcrux, right? I'm good. I want to keep myself together. So the more I looked at it, I said, even if I go prostrate myself in front of these people, if they were even to work with me in action and not in name, I'd have to give up so much and I would be receiving so little. And then people would have actually a more valid argument to call me a vote splitter, which we shouldn't even have that argument. It's ridiculous. We need to go to ranked choice voting and have more freedom in our actual democracy. But they would have at least a little bit more of an argument if I was running as a Democrat. Right. Because yes, we have a Democratic majority, but it is fine. Not as fine as it is in the House right now, but it is still a fine Democratic majority. And so just every calculation I ran, everything I did, and I just kept going back to my interactions with the people, no matter what was coming in my ears, no matter what people were telling me. And especially, it's kind of funny, the longer you've been involved in politics, the less likely I actually want to take your opinion and your advice, because the problem is what's been happening and what's going on, and it's been so long, is not working. The status quo is not working for working people. And so I don't want to do what you're doing. I don't want to take your advice. Right. And so all of that. So I just feel like if I ran to the Democratic Party, I would be the exact example that Kshama Sawant talks about, where it's just a path to the graveyard. I would get eaten up, chewed up, and spit out. And if I run as a nonpartisan, so there's a couple really interesting statistics about my district that people don't talk about. Nobody talks about Ventura County anyway. But so, as I keep saying, Democrats are the majority. We have roughly 215,000 registered Democrats in our county, 800,000 total, just for reference. And then there's about 145,000 registered Republicans. And then usually at that point, everybody says, and then the rest is just other. But it's not. There's 111,000 registered nonpartisan.
Wow.
Before I even start to try and peel away from anybody's party affiliation, right, there is at least almost a third of the registered voting population of my district that wants something different, that is already fed up with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And then, because I worked the elections last year, I have all the numbers are like burned into my brain, which is awesome. So last year, as I'm sure you both know, existential election, highest turnout everywhere we've ever seen, most participation, highest registration, highest everything. My district, my county is no different. We had 80% voter turnout in our district. It's a record high. Right. And not only that, so in March with our primary, we had 470,000 registered voters. By November, this is 6 months of the pandemic now, because actually what's funny is we had our primary in March and literally 2 weeks later, the entire state shut down. So March was, the pandemic was starting. But at that point, it was only just a Trump-Biden, existential right, election. 6 months later, we've watched just everything explode and implode. And our registration went from 470,000 to 508, almost 510,000. And 422,000 of those people showed up to vote.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So record numbers, absolutely amazing. I know that, it was all once in a lifetime things, but I really hope that those numbers continue. I really hope we continue on that trajectory. That's how we're going to make the change. But so an interesting thing that caught my eye, 422,000 people voted in the presidential contest. We know that the farther you get down the ballot, the less likely people are to participate. However, in California, the congressional race was presidential, congressional. Congressional was number 2 front page. 422,000 people voted for the presidential contest. Only 340 some odd thousand people voted in the second contest.
Right.
Almost 70,000 registered voters who slept out through a pandemic, risked dying to vote, looked at the second ballot option and said, there's nothing here for me. Yeah. Absolutely nothing here for me.
Wow.
So yes, this is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. She's got $3 million in the bank right now and is still begging our low-income people for money like she needs it. Right. It is going to be hard. It is absolutely going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But what I've realized is that we've never had a left candidate in this county. We've never had a Medicare for all candidate in this county. And win, lose, or draw, I'm going to be a part of shifting the conversation and creating a dialogue that has never been able to be facilitated here. And so I'm so sorry. I will stop talking now.
No, that's all amazing. So what I love everything you're saying. I'm wondering what the structure of support. So like, I know you don't want to run as a socialist, or you don't even run as an independent, but to be totally nonpartisan, how have you gone about sort of like getting your campaign going without an official structure like that?
Sure. And that has actually been a very informative process. I feel like I am on a crash course. And so another thing about this, running nonpartisan, there are a lot of roadblocks, hurdles, and barriers that I have run into that are systemic and intentional and structural. And then also just because there's nothing there. And so again, win, lose, or draw, I know that I already have a plan for after, whether I get elected or not. There needs to be a nonprofit national organization that goes around and trains candidates who want to run, especially working class candidates, and it needs to be for free. So there's a lot of there's a lot of candidate training programs out there, but some of them are $3,000 just entry fee. And if you're curious, if you just want to get some information, that's a lot of money to drop, especially as a working class person. And so I'm trying to compile all of the little knowledge and tips and tricks and resources that I've learned and gained. And long term, I want to put together, maybe work with Working Families Party because they have a really great candidate training program. So work with somebody that maybe has already got some infrastructure built in, but just expand it because all the training starts when you're fundraising.
Right.
But I show up at all these fundraising trainings and they're like, okay, so now that you've got your website and this and that going and you filed for your candidacy and your platform and your campaign, I'm like, how do you do that? What? I missed the first class. I need to go back a couple levels. And so while there are some resources there, I feel like there's some gaps that need to be plugged. And so it has been a very, very learning process. What I have discovered and realized is my absolute favorite part about being nonpartisan is that I don't have to listen to anybody's rules. I don't have to do what anybody says, do what anybody, other than my constituents, right? But as far as political rules, establishment, you have to do this or you won't get elected. You can't say this. You have to do this. I don't have to listen to any of that because I am 100% forging my own path all the way through. And so I am open to talking to anybody and everybody that will sit down and talk to me about these issues over here. I forget which side I'm on. So like, for instance, there is a gentleman in middle of California somewhere. California's big. I don't know. That was a Bernie supporter in 2016. And the way he describes himself is that where the rest of us took a left, he took a hard right. And there's a huge portion of actually the Trump voters that would have voted for Bernie. There's some good overlap there.
Yep.
And him and I got connected on Instagram somehow. We were commenting on each other's things and ended up, he invited me to live stream with him. Come to find out, he not only is a Trump supporter, he was for the recall, for Larry Elder, but he's also for Medicare for All and an independent. And what was interesting was we ended up talking for 4 hours and realized that there was and I hate that they've co-opted this cliche and made it a cliche, but there really is so much more that unites us than divides us. And the division is intentional and manufactured. And so that's kind of how I did a long answer to say that's how I'm running this is I am willing to work with anybody. And that has actually knocked down some barriers and opened some doors that might not have been there if I was running as a DNC or establishment candidate.
Well,
so my question is, do you have any, I mean, it's unfortunate, but so many voters are just not tuned into these elections and also not informed, but name recognition is such a big part of this. And
nobody knows who she is. No, I'm kidding.
I just say
she's invisible.
Honestly, like if you have 10 grand to put somewhere, a banner with your name on it, a billboard, honestly goes farther in my mind than a lot of things. But do you have any plans because I feel like as an outsider, you need to draw attention to yourself because you're probably not going to get the opportunity to debate your opponent, right? Is that something that you might have coming up? I mean, do you think you'll be invited to the debates?
If not, we'll have a repeat of what just happened was it Virginia or Pennsylvania?
Virginia.
Virginia. And so I'm from Maryland. So I'm right with that woman. No, you are not going to silence me. You are not going to keep me out. If they have the audacity to exclude me, I will be in the audience in full force, and they will not get to participate. They will not get to have a debate until they are kicked. They, arrest me and kick me out. So I think that because of the jungle primary and the open nature of the way things are done here, and because they can't say it's only a Democratic debate or that it's only a Republican debate, because it's going to be a debate with the Democrat. And so I didn't get to really tell you about the full dynamics of my race. So there's a Democratic incumbent. There's myself, who's running as a nonpartisan. The Republican who challenged her and lost last time is running again.
Okay.
And then there's another Republican who's gotten in the race. So we'll talk about some of that fun stuff, maybe offline. I don't want to give away all of my secrets, but so because there is already, a plethora, of parties or positions or whatever, I believe they are going to have to invite all of us. There's only 4 of us. It's not like there's 100 people. They don't have room on the stage. However, I do not know how willing Brownlee is going to be to do the debate. So last year during the pandemic, they only did 1 debate, and she declined to do the second one. And it's interesting because she cited, pandemic concerns, but it was going to be over Zoom. So, to answer your question, I do believe I'll be able to debate, and I cannot wait to get on that debate stage, because this county and these voters are going to hear some things that they have never heard before. Like I cannot wait to call her out on that 3 million, and she's still milking our poor income people. The person who sent me that email is a disabled vet who cannot afford internet. He has to go to the library to check out a hotspot to check his email. He gets his email, and it's from our do nothing representative saying, please give me money. The Democrats are going to take my job. So she's fear mongering, she's scaring people, and while providing nothing, she's still milking them for everything that they don't have. And so I'm going to call her out on that stage. Why do you have 3 million in your bank and you're still taking money? You could fund your next 3 elections. Question's yours.
No, absolutely. And I was just listening to David Sirota talking about, why doesn't anybody ask politicians who are your biggest donors and how does your vote benefit them? And the thing about having, a grassroots campaign is that's exactly how every representative should be foisted up, is grassroots. So that's wonderful.
To answer your question, so Pat, I would absolutely love, and I think a billboard was actually one of my first ideas to just get out there and be crazy. It's kind of unconventional in this area, especially because I don't know what your situation is like, Leila, but here we actually have it's called a clean open air laws. We cannot have skyscrapers and a lot of things that block our view here in Ventura County, which is actually blew my mind. Being from the East Coast, I was like, you can do that? What? And so there are only a handful of billboards in the county, but I've never seen a politician on one. And so I'm definitely going to snag one of those. But so here is where not only name recognition, but the other major problem that I am absolutely running into, funding, right? Yeah. There's this catch-22 that even people who are politically active, if they weren't so exhausted and tapped out from the longest electoral or political cycle that we've ever experienced in our lifetimes, right? Arizona just called. We technically just ended our November presidential election, right? It's the longest presidential election cycle in our history. And so people are tapped out. And so even people who are politically engaged, who are politically active, just blow after blow. And I think Nina Turner was the final strike for a lot of people. And there's just a lot of people who I call them, and even if they either hang up as soon as I say I'm a congressperson running for Congress, or if they hear me out, once they hear me, they love what I have to say, they love what I'm fighting for. They either don't think I can win because I'm running nonpartisan, or they love that I'm running nonpartisan, but they're so burnt out and they can't trust anybody anymore that they don't want to put their money on the line. They've been lied to and betrayed so many times. Yeah. And I know that this is something that you all wanted to discuss. And I think that nonpartisan is actually the answer to that. So if you want to set up that question or whatever.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, because I realize we're quickly approaching the second half of our show. We're actually.
Oh, shoot.
No, it's okay. But I do. Well, first of all, we'll put your website in the description.
Thank you.
I do think you're right. And I think it's really hard. And unfortunately, the Democratic establishment and progressives in Congress have done a lot to sort of suppress enthusiasm by their lack of conviction. I mean, we'll see what happens with the reconciliation bill, but it seems like they're already, negotiating their negotiated negotiation, right? So that definitely makes people feel like they want to check out of electoral politics. And yet, like the people who are talking about direct action, it's the elected politicians who are the focus. They're the target of direct action. Like there has to be some concerted effort, right?
Yes.
And I know you wanted to talk about that. How are we? Maybe one more question, and then we'll
sure. I mean, I just want to add to that I agree that you've got a lot of people that are extremely disenfranchised right now who want to put their efforts towards changing our country, who don't know what to do because, so many of us saw that pathway fighting for progressive politicians, but now we're coming to the point where we realize, even 4 more progressives probably isn't going to change much in the Senate or Congress. I mean, so there'll be a fall guy. So I support, I still support electoral politics where it makes sense. But I think it's important for people like you to get a bigger platform. And even if your campaign doesn't win, I think challenging and voicing the opinions and getting more people to recognize that blind faith in the Democratic Party isn't the answer is really critical to people who don't believe in electoral politics. I mean, people on the outside fighting for direct action still want our message to get across. And by you running, you're helping get our message across, which is critical to me.
And so all of that. So if you want me to choose, and I'll try and keep it brief. I know I ramble a little bit, but so I think that it's an inside outside strategy, both with activism and running for politics, and then also Democratic Party nonpartisanship. So I think that a couple of things are never going to change unless something about the dynamic of the way we vote changes. And by that, I mean the way that our congressional representatives vote. There's nothing on the left of the Democrats, right? So they know that we have nowhere to go. And Lawrence O'Donnell has said this, and we've seen that video played a lot of times. There's nowhere for us to go, right? They know that they don't have to listen to us. We're never going to go to the Republicans. So this is it. They don't have to listen to us. We're just a captive audience. While I do not have any delusions of grandeur that I am going to show up and drop bombs and blow everything up, and I have people push back that, you keep saying nonpartisan, but that's not the answer to everything. While nonpartisan might not be the solution, I absolutely, deepest in my heart, believe that running nonpartisan and having at least a handful of nonpartisan candidates in Congress is the pathway to change. Because the people running as and operating as Democrats, and I bear nobody any ill will, I support many candidates in LA and all over this country who have to run as a Democrat because they do have closed primaries and other jacked up rules that they have to work around. So I completely understand and respect that. But what they need is outside agitation to give them somewhere to go. The squad is never going to be able to put up a piece of legislation that implements term limits, that limits campaign finance spending, that increases transparency, and that limits their power in any way, shape, or form. And so what we need is somebody who's not tied to any of that will propose that legislation, that will be that bad guy, and that will be the Joe Manchin on the left who says, I'm not going to vote for this, and there's nothing that you can do. I don't care how much Nancy Pelosi comes and screams in my face. I dare you. You will not beat the drill sergeants that I have been through. There's nothing that you can do to me that I have not already been through. I am not changing my vote. And that's a big problem we can talk to. Yeah. But so I think that nonpartisan is the way we kind of force in the crowbar to pry the things open so that we can facilitate the change. Because until somebody writes the legislation, the squad can't vote for it. And so I feel like having an outside boogeyman will give the squad somebody that they can go to, hopefully not Pelosi, but whoever is the speaker at the time, and say, hey, if Wilson doesn't vote for this, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, well, that is a plan. I mean, I think that's the plan that we're all in different ways trying to articulate, whether it's direct action or force the vote or having parties in Congress to leverage power. So we wish you all the luck in the world. And yes, we will put your website please take a look at danielforcongress.com, and we'll put it in the description. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was really wonderful to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you both so very much. And just one final word, the in the streets activism and what everybody's upset about Bernie Sanders, AOC, and them not using their following to call direct actions on a regular basis is the problem. And that's where we need to go. That's the inside outside. It's the streets and voting. We should be organizing and having rallies to march people to the polls. It's a both and, because without those activists voting for people like me, we're going to keep getting the corporate establishment Democrats. So please don't stop voting, but don't stop marching either. It's a both and it's going to take all of us to change this system. Thank you both so much for your time and this opportunity. Yes, please, everybody go to danielforcongress.com and always support nonpartisan grassroots candidates that are fighting for you.
Daniel, thank you.
Amen. I just want to add, thank you so much for coming on. I'm very leery of even platforming candidates these days, but being nonpartisan makes it that much easier. So thank you for coming, and really, if you can, support Daniel for Congress. We need more independents / nonpartisans to move the needle.
Thank you. And
awesome.
We'll keep
thank you all so much.
And hope to have you come back.
Absolutely. Anytime. You all have a great night.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good night. So we are, yes, I love him too. I agree. What energy. And now, I mean, the funny thing is, like, so he had to go, and we had to get to the last little bit of our show, and now we're gonna, like, fill it up with our like, my edibles and my wine just kicked in, and I know you're on, like, your third.
Edibles and wine. That's a good. That should be our next podcast.
Oh yes, don't give out that we're going to copyright it. Edibles and wine. But we did want to. So we did want to talk about our upcoming new segment. Are we even going to go to COVID and Fauci and Biden in the news? Should we do a quick run of?
Let's just go through it. What the hell? I mean, it's short. We'll just jam through it because it's the only news that we wanted to pull, because we knew we were going to be interviewing Daniel, and we're going to keep it light on the news side today.
Yeah.
And then hype our show next week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought the most astounding part of propaganda, Disney Plus is just getting in on the action, and we are sainthooding, giving a sainthood or something to Fauci.
The documentary coming up. New documentary, You Don't Get Intimidated, says Fauci. Like, I mean,
this is the guy who, first of all, was intimidated by Trump for quite a bit of the time, lied about masks, lied about the funding for the Wuhan lab, shut down any conversation about the possibility of gain of function, and has really shown himself to be a very political actor, and has made, I think, the CDC completely the administration's response to the pandemic by both administrations. I mean, it's the trust levels are down so much, but what does that say in the highlighted part?
Yeah, so it says, it's hard to imagine Anthony Fauci, MD, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, running a private practice that caters to wealthy Manhattanites, but that's the direction he once considered. And I feel like he's going to be considering that the minute his job ends. I mean, he's going to go, maybe he's made enough money now. Well, let's just show the next graphic. I mean, he is
the highest paid employee in the entire, he makes more than the president. And he has like a multi-million-dollar contract.
It's insane. And, he's lost his trust justifiably. I mean, for Biden, the whole administration, Biden's going to come in and believe science. And then he keeps on Fauci, who misled a lot of people. And he could have made a clean slate, in my opinion, which would have been the right move.
Yeah. I mean, Fauci is, I think, so compromised by his ties to pharma, by his, his big grants where he makes a lot of money through the National Institute of Health. And he has made it very difficult to trust anything that comes out of the administration, which is really devastating to our country and this absolute disaster of a response to the pandemic.
Amen to that. So Biden's trust is taking a big hit, obviously, through this.
Well, the funny thing was, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, somebody asked Fauci, are we going to be able to get together for Christmas with our families, the holidays? And he said, let's not talk about that yet. But 3 months ago, they were saying, take your masks off. And just this past month, they're saying, get to school. So they're telling the kids to go to school, but you can't see your family for the holidays. Really is a confusing message.
Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I'm fighting for my friend to comment. I'm overriding you. Kaylin gets her Jesus fucking Christ, says Kaylin. There we go.
Thanks, Kaylin. It's my first time getting to push the buttons, and it's happening. It's a confluence of events with the edibles and the wine kicking in and the power of being able to push the buttons.
We have to fix this for next show so you don't have this capability.
I'm never getting it again. I know. And you can see my eyes crossing as I'm looking over to the sidebar. It's too many hats I'm wearing. All right, but I forgot what our next thing is, because I always push the
we had the chart, which it's the COVID chart, or is it?
Okay, so I did a crafty little thing, and I posted this on Facebook to see how the libs would respond, and they fell right into my trap, and right away we're like, wow, look at those red states, and ha, Trump's pandemic. And then I said, oh, just look at the title, because it's actually a map of the percent of the population under 65 without health insurance. So, it's so funny. You all were left in the middle of a global pandemic to fend for yourselves. Hilarious.
Yeah. And look at Texas. I mean, that's amazing that Texas has so many people without health care.
I mean, this is a failed country. Look at, there's Tennessee, there's Florida. There are parts of, I don't even know what some of those states are. That's crazy. How's the Midwest doing so well? Apart from Indiana, not great.
I have no idea.
Now I just want you to know that I know some of those states. I see Maine and Vermont. Yeah.
Geography is my worst topic, by the way. So I'm even with the United States, I suck at it. So I'm gonna let that go.
There's a lot there that yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at the actual COVID map.
Not to do it. You got me. Go ahead. Yeah, that's COVID. So this actually is not the overlay I wanted it to be, although I'm really thrilled for the states that are becoming less red. But up until this 1 week, where I was trying to make some big point about how the states with the highest rates of COVID were also the states that were least insured, up until just today, the graphic bore out my my big argument. But today, I mean, I'm thrilled, of course, for those southern states that are becoming more yellow. But
I've never used our banners, but I just saw
I didn't even know that we had one of those wrong again.
Hit the banner.
Oh my God. Anyway, yeah. I mean, to make fun of the red states who are, at capacity with hospitals and dying and suffering is like everybody who probably wanted, to blow us off the face of the earth when we had Trump. So
right. But so even though this map looked worse not that long ago, I mean, the entire, none of these should be orange hues. These are all danger spots. Like just because California is yellowish and orangish and not dark red, it's still a tragedy in governments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, we put these in kind of a funny order, but the level of trust, the level of mistrust is so high because as we're talking about vaccine passports, and, I always make this distinction because I don't know enough about how it all bears out institutionally. And I think I know where I come down on that. But in my own life, I have a strict vaccine passport mandate, and I won't hang out with people who aren't vaccinated, But the fact that up until just recently, you couldn't even talk about immunity from having had the vaccination because it was something that Trump once said. So there was this hyper partisan divide where if Trump ever said anything about a subject or a medicine or a possibility, that it would just be shut down with no inquisition. Now it turns out that, this is an Israeli study, I think, and they have the highest rate of vaccination and the best study. I mean, we haven't done as much data collection as we should. But anyway, there's a high degree of, immunity after having had the actual virus. So,
which is the point, because I've been torn on mandates. I mean, I lean towards, yes, you should mandate it, but the problem with mandates is that we're not providing people enough resources, and you make it difficult to exist, basically, for a lot of people. So, it'd be one thing if you're providing rapid home tests all the time, free, not charging. I mean, my friend with cancer had to pay for a rapid test. $300 she paid for a rapid test for her work. But yeah, so I mean, if you're listening to the science says that you are you're gifted with natural immunity of sorts that may be better than the vaccine and longer lasting than the vaccine if you are exposed to COVID, which doesn't mean we shouldn't push for vaccines, but if you're going to
have a passport, right, that doesn't have that as a possibility.
Yeah, if you're going to exclude people from access to things, you should provide the opportunity, if the science supports it, to be able to test free to prove that you have some immunity, which you've been exposed. And excluding that, even from the discussion, is really wrong, in my opinion.
Well, and it really makes it seem like an enormous conflict of interest, which I think is what a lot of people who are skeptical of getting the vaccination in the first place are feeling, right? Is that we know that the big pharma, that the pharmaceutical companies have profited in the tens of billions off of a pandemic that has devastated the world. So it's hard to see that if there's a possibility that just, that you have the antibodies without taking the medicine, but you're being forced to take the medicine, it's really
right.
It's just,
and I hate to quote or to refer to the Project Veritas info that just came out recently, because they're if you don't know who they are, they're a basically right-wing nutty group that usually uses out of context, secretly taped videos.
Maybe that it's actually out of context.
Yeah, they're pretty much scumbags. But on the other hand, they recently did a bunch of videos with Pfizer doctors working there. We might find out they're not even doctors, so take this.
I know. I'm wondering. It could have been a whole. It could have been. Yeah.
Because they're not a trusted source. But I believe what they were saying is backed up in the science. Is that these doctors that worked at Pfizer were telling someone they thought was a regular citizen discussing things at the bar or whatever, that they believe natural immunity is stronger than the vaccine, basically, to boil it down. So.
Yeah, and up until recently, you'd be banned, I think, from YouTube and Facebook for proffering that, opinion, or even just wanting to question. I mean, I think when we get to a point where you can't question science, and I'm not talking about disseminating misinformation. I am pro-vaccine. I am anti-big pharma, but I really appreciate this vaccine. But if you can't question science, then it's not science. I mean, that actually goes against the definition. Like, science is questioning and discovering the truth and picking away at it. It's not shutting down all discourse, but it pays well.
But that is the science now. We do shut down discourse. So, well, I'm extremely pro-vaccine. I don't think there's some manipulative plot to chip us, any nutty bullshit like that. If the science says that the someone exposed to the virus has the same immunity I do, we can't exclude them from society, and that's just got to be something we can test and give them the vaccine card for, or passport.
Yeah.
Anyway, do we have much more? I don't think we do. Well, we have one more slide.
Go ahead, push the button, Pat, because now I can't even toggle back to it. I lost my screen.
Pushing the button.
That's it. That's the other. I mean, that's the problem, is that, when you see how much money they're making, when you see that they won't release the patents, because the truth is, if we don't want more variants, if we want to put an end to this pandemic, they release the patents and other countries can make the necessary vaccinations much more quickly. They obviously don't want to do that because of intellectual property and the billions of dollars they might lose. So they will kill tens of millions of people for that. So that is an enormous conflict of interest. And of course, it makes people skeptical about the vaccination and about the passports and these big business. And by the way, they've lied before. It's not like it's not even just like money is their motive. They are disgusting, pathological.
Right. Well, you can be anti-big pharma. Wait, let me switch that around. You could support the vaccine and still distrust big pharma, which right. You should. So finding the balance of all this involves discussion, because there are a lot of people that rightfully don't trust big pharma, rightfully don't trust Pfizer specifically for a lot of their things. What was there was
Chantix.
Yeah, Chantix. Chantix.
Whatever.
I don't know. But people have a reason to distrust big pharma, and so you have to discuss this, and you have to have faith in government on some level. At least the CDC you should trust, but we don't trust the CDC.
Dr. Fauci, who's shown himself to be untrustworthy and motivated sometimes by other, political or financial reasons. Biden, who, when he can put a sentence together, is spewing misinformation.
It's a mess, but let's keep the talk going, and that doesn't mean I'm going right wing or anti-vax, please.
Once again,
if you want to cancel me,
we are going to cancel you. It's that red brown. I always get the colors wrong. Red brown alliance.
Yeah. So let's just hype our next show, because we don't have much news this week, but we have a fun show coming up this Friday.
I think it's funny that we just said we don't have much news this week. Like, the world is falling apart. We can talk about the news 24/7, but
we don't want to talk about it. We don't care that much. It's not that important. What really matters is our fun show.
We want to have some fun.
Yeah. So here's a graphic. We made graphics.
So that's us in our promotion for our new Friday night show this week. Friday night, we're going to go Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, and Pacific, 8 p.m. and 11 Eastern. And it is a big old debate show where we drink too much and have fun.
Right. So we're going to debate issues. We're going to have a wheel that determines what issues we debate. And then we're going to have a wheel of punishment. So if you lose the debate, you're going to have to spin the wheel, and it's going to have a lot of people watching. You guys can get involved, and we're going to just have a good time. But we're going to debate. So one of us will be forced to take the counterpoint and debate it. So it should be a good time.
And it'll be like, slightly political bents, like, what do we have? We got Kirsten Sinema is a maverick. Anyone who still likes Bernie's a cultist, and why we should settle for the $1.5 trillion reconciliation bill, why that's better than nothing. So we got, it's going to be a challenge when you have to go for any of the really jaw-droppingly stupid takes that we hear all the time from some of our.
Right. I kind of feel like maybe I should just take the counterpoint on everything. I think it'd be fun to just get in character and
I want to talk about why Kirsten Sinema is a maverick in the vein of another hero of mine, John McCain, from that great state of Arizona.
I mean, her outfits alone make her a maverick. I mean, the tennis shoes with the dress.
And and the only thing that would make that more fun is if one of the rules I have to follow on that wheel is that I have to do it in an accent.
Oh yeah, we have. There
are going to be some parameters to judge it by. We're going to just try and have fun. It's always take a shot for sure, but then there will be some tell a joke. Ask me anything. There'll be a little.
It's going to be ugly. I'm going to have nothing but regrets, and the people that hate me online are going to clip all the things out of context for sure. So I look forward to this.
Cancel me. We got a lot of reasons to cancel.
Oh, that's one of the categories. Say something that gets you canceled.
Cancel. Yep. We got Awesome graphic. Love the graphic. All right. I'm rifling through everybody. Thank you for all showing up. Look at you guys. Thank you. But yeah. Oops, I did that wrong. Sorry. Look at me. I got power hungry.
Wait a minute. I have to push a banner then.
Oh. I put our logo up there.
Know.
I am on it.
Oh, you did? Good job. So
listen, everything.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. I hope wish you good luck in your challenge. I hope if anyone wants to support
inspire us.
Yeah, please support Daniel if you can. Just to raise awareness and win. God damn it, win.
Yeah,
please.
win.
But if nothing else, it's not money wasted when you change a lot of people's minds, which is what's going to happen even if you end up in second or third. If you're in fourth, it's a waste of money. So don't come in fourth. That would be embarrassing. But no, just kidding. I love you, Daniel. Appreciate it.
First, thank you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you Friday at 8 for the Virgin Voyage of Drunken Debates. Look at
Drunken Debate, Drunken Pot. Adam, we'll come up with a name. Who cares? Just join us.
We'll see you later. Guys. Bye. Thanks. Cheers.